People tend to overgeneralize as follows. When they spot a similarity between two things, they assume that whatever is true of one must also be true of the other, even where they actually differ. This is exactly what happens when people compare the theoretical disciplines on the one hand to the arts on the other. What we call the theoretical disciplines are, namely, philosophy, mathematics, and physics. Of course, there are similarities between them and the arts, but the theoretical disciplines require rational thinking, whereas each art requires a certain dogma and physical skill. We all notice that nobody masters multiple arts at once. Someone who focuses on just one art or craft becomes excellent at it far more easily. To give you an analogy, the same hands can't easily switch between plowing fields and playing the harp. Specializing in one skill works better than splitting attention across many. People find enough resemblance between the theoretical disciplines and the arts so that they assume the theoretical disciplines work the same way. They sort the theoretical disciplines by subject matter and then insist that each one should be studied in depth, in isolation from the others. But the reasoning is simply wrong. All theoretical disciplines rest on nothing but human intellect. That intellect stays one and the same, no matter what subject it's applied to. It's no more changed by its objects than sunlight is altered by the variety of things it happens to shine on. So, there is no reason to impose any boundaries upon the mind. And knowing one truth isn't like practicing a single art. It doesn't block us from discovering another truth. On the contrary, it helps us get the next one. So, we should not adopt, among the theoretical disciplines, the spirit of a specialization, that is, the concentration upon a single one. Specialization is necessary in the arts, for instance. You become an expert only by dedicating yourself entirely to the particular art. To reach truth, however, we must study all the theoretical disciplines rather than restricting ourselves to a single one. These disciplines should be treated as a unified whole. Here, we are led to a second, subtler error, one that often replaces the first. Having abandoned narrow specialization, many turn instead to the opposite extreme. They resolve to learn many things at once, treating sheer quantity of knowledge as the goal. On this view, a mind is excellent in proportion to how much it has gathered, how many facts memorized, how many texts mastered, how many authorities cited. A mind that pursues many subjects at once gathers more than one confined to a single subject. This approach looks like the cure for narrowness since it embraces every subject rather than just one. But it shares the very same defect. It still measures the mind by what it possesses rather than by what it can correctly judge. A person may have crammed 1,000 particulars into memory and still reason poorly about any one of them. Heaping up knowledge, however broad, is not the same as directing the mind well. Indeed, it amazes me how diligent people are in studying human customs, plant properties, star motions, metal transformations, and the objects of other non-theoretical fields. Yet almost no one stops to think about sound judgment itself, or about the intellect expected of normal human beings. This is strange, because everything else only matters insofar as it contributes to that general intellect. Its value is never in itself alone. But particular subjects, customs, plants, stars, metals, are commonly pursued for their own sake, without regard to whether they strengthen that general intellect. So it makes perfect sense to set this down as our first principle of methodology. Nothing leads us further off the road to truth than the mistake of concentrating on particular subjects before understanding this one general subject first. Also, for that matter, concentrating on the sheer volume of particulars instead is just as bad. I'm not talking about dishonorable goals here, like vainglory or love of easy money. Sophistry clearly opens an easier road to those than solid truth ever could. I'm thinking instead of decent, praiseworthy goals. These deceive us more subtly, precisely because they seem so reasonable. Consider pursuing intellectual knowledge for life's comforts or for the pleasure found in contemplating the ultimate truth. That pleasure is nearly the only happiness that's free of pain, I agree. These are legitimate fruits, and we can genuinely expect to attain them. But there's a catch. If we dwell on these rewards in the midst of our studies, they often make us skip material we actually need. We skip it because it seems, at first glance, unimportant or uninteresting. We would not, for instance, study what occurs in some distant galaxy, too remote ever to be reached, as it would seem of no practical use to humanity. We must recognize something important, though. All theoretical disciplines interconnect and depend on each other so closely that learning them together is far easier than separating one from the others. So, if you seriously want to investigate truth, you shouldn't pick just one theoretical field, nor should you chase every field merely to amass what it contains. You should instead focus on increasing intellectual power itself. The goal isn't to solve this or that scholastic puzzle, nor to outcollect anyone else's store of facts. The real goal is broader than any single problem and deeper than any sum of particulars. In every situation life presents, the intellect should guide the will toward right judgment. In a word, all studies should aim at one goal, and that's to train one's intellect well so that it becomes capable of forming solid, true judgments about everything presented to it. Soon, you will be amazed to find the following. You will have made far greater progress than those who study only philosophy, only mathematics, or only physics, and further still than those who merely accumulated the most amount of information. You will have gained not only the knowledge desired by others, but also higher knowledge that they never could have expected to attain.